Greetings. My name is Dr. Teresa Handy, and I am presenting on Finding Balance, How Women Can Navigate Low Promotability Tasks for Career Growth. The theme of this conference is the power within. So how does the session relate to the theme? Let's be clear. The power isn't in doing more. It is in choosing wisely. When we recognize that these tasks are being distributed unfairly and that the saying yes to everything actually undermines our career growth, we tap into our inner strength to make different choices. This was eye-opening to me when someone in leadership said, quote, "You don't have to say yes to everything." And I thought I had to because I thought it would impact my career journey if I didn't. So this session is as much for me as it is for you. I want you to imagine being asked to lead the transition to a new technology platform, or maybe coordinate a new student or employee engagement committee, or serve as a culture keeper for your remote team, or mentor a young faculty member or a new faculty member, or organize the office party online. Meanwhile, your male colleague is serving in a high visibility role on a task force that reports directly to leadership. Yes, these tasks that I listed are important, but the question is, are they advancing your career? During our time together, I hope that you will learn how to identify low promotability tasks, evaluate tasks, the task requests that you're given using the framework that we're going to discuss later, and also learn how to apply some practical strategies to help you rebalance your workload toward high impact and promotable tasks. Before we get started, I wanted to share a bit about me. As I said, this session is important to me as a woman. I know that we often perform essential but low promotability tasks called LPTs that don't advance our careers. I'm a program chair and assistant professor at the University of Arizona Global Campus, and I'm excited to share this wondering that I had that has really helped me find more balance at work. Balance that has allowed me to be more present at home and more satisfied at work. Finally, I would just like to take a moment to thank you for taking time to watch this recording. I love the theme this year, and I want us to unpack what the power within means. To me, it means recognizing your inherent worth beyond being helpful and available at work. In this context, in this particular session, it means understanding that your time and your talent are valuable resources. It means that you make strategic choices that honor your career goals. It means having the courage to set boundaries, and even when that feels uncomfortable. Finally, it means trusting yourself to determine what serves your highest professional purpose. The data shows us the pattern, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but you have the power to change your personal trajectory. Not just you, but me too. That means we all do. Know that no one can grant you permission to prioritize your growth. That power has to come from within. So today we are going to activate that power by sharing some tools to recognize, evaluate, and respond to these tasks strategically. So what are low promotability tasks? They are LPTs, are responsibilities that are necessary for organizations to function, but they provide little to no benefit when it comes to promotion, compensation, or leadership advancement. These tasks often include activities such as, and I want you to keep this in mind or get a piece of paper and write them down. So you're going to need these later when we do our little activity. These tasks look like taking meeting notes, doing onboarding for new employees, that's outside of your job description, coordinating schedules, mentoring without a formal recognition in place, organizing events, managing technology issues, serving as the emotional support for your team or for students. And while this work is valuable and essential, it is frequently invisible in formal evaluations. So it's rarely tied to an advancement, career advancement. And research consistently shows that women take on these tasks and responsibilities disproportionately more than men. And they are more likely to say yes when they are asked. Studies report that women volunteer for such tasks significantly more than men and are often and are also asked more frequently, creating a systemic imbalance rather than an individual choice issue. In academic and online education environments, that imbalance kind of intensifies by gendered expectations. Maybe that women will be more nurturing, responsive, accommodating, particularly in those student-facing and service-oriented roles. And so the consequence of this pattern, it can be cumulative and profound because time spent on LPTs is time not spent on promotable work, such as research and grant writing, curriculum development and innovation, program leadership, or high visibility institutional initiative programs. And over time, these small decisions compound into measurable career gaps, contributing to slower promotion, reduced leadership opportunities, and even burnout. The issue is not that LPTs are unimportant, but that when they dominate a woman's workload without any recognition or balance, they undermine her career growth. And understanding what LPTs are and why they matter is the first step in reclaiming agency, making informed choices, and shifting from being indispensable to being in to being from being indispensable in invisible ways to making strategic choices to being visible in career advancing ways. So it is important that we reframe our choices and agency and rethink how we work. And this matters because if women don't, then there will be reduced visibility in those high impact projects, decreased time for strategic tasks, and cumulatively, just a disadvantaged pathway to a promotion. So, what is the impact to your career? Well, basically, time spent on LPTs, low promotability task equals time away from research and strategic leadership opportunities. You may also find that you fall into that good girl trap where you are focused on being helpful and agreeable. And this can be problematic online because a lot of times it's very strategic in how we get those opportunities. Remote work makes LPTs invisible because no one sees you staying late on Zoom supporting struggling students or trying to fix a broken link by finding a new article. Overall, what happens is that these small decisions compound over time and the annual reviews don't capture the labor. And the bottom line is when you are doing low promotability tasks, you miss out on promotable projects. The theme of The Power Within invites an opportunity to critically reframe how women think about contribution, their value, and their professional identity. Too often, power is misunderstood as doing more, being indispensable, or never saying no. Raising my hand there. In reality, sustainable power comes from discernment, clarity, and the courage to make strategic choices. Many women internalize the belief that saying no will damage their professional image and signal a lack of commitment. This belief is reinforced by organizational cultures that reward compliance and emotional labor while overlooking long-term cost. Recognizing that not all work is equal is an act of self-leadership. The power within begins with acknowledging inherent worth beyond being helpful and understanding that time, energy, and expertise are finite resources that must be invested wisely. Strategic decision making means aligning everyday choices with long term career goals rather than kind of defaulting to this immediate organizational need. It also requires unlearning that good girl narrative and knowing that you don't always have to be agreeable and you don't always have to sacrifice self. When women begin to see boundary setting not as selfishness, but as professional stewardship, they unlock a deep form of agency. And this mindset shift is particularly important in academia and online education, where invisible labor has really increased and those boundaries are blurred. Power is exercised when women trust themselves to evaluate their requests that they're being asked to do, weigh the opportunity costs, and choose work that advances their leadership trajectory. No one can grant permission to prioritize growth. That authority has to come from within. By reframing choice as a leadership skill, women move from reactive participation to intentional career design, transforming how they show up, transforming what they accept, and how their contributions are recognized. So, how do we recognize the pattern? Across industries, low promotability tasks often fall into predictable categories, commonly referred to as the glue work. So, what does that mean? That's that emotional labor, such as mediating conflict, supporting struggling colleagues and students, maintaining team morale. Those administrative burdens like scheduling, documentation, and coordination, knowledge transfer through training and mentoring without any formal credit. All of these event planning and serving as a communication between different departments, the communication liaison between different departments. This work holds the organization together, the glue, right? Yet it's rarely rewarded. And what makes glue work particularly problematic is it's not that it's not necessary, it's that it's invisible and it's often gendered. Performance evaluations and promotion criteria tend to prioritize outputs like publications and grant writing and revenue, things that generate revenue. Rarely is glue work because that's kind of what's happening in the background. Women are more likely to be assigned or volunteer for these tasks due to socialization or stereotypes and even the assumptions about competence and availability. In online environments, this labor becomes less visible. As we mentioned before, the hours spent troubleshooting with a student or dealing with a crisis with a student, all of this is invisible and it's not something that is seen. It's really witnessed by leadership. Over time, this creates a sticky floor effect where women remain essential, but they're undervalued. They remain busy, but stalled. Organizations can also pay a price because of the inefficient task distribution can lead to burnout, disengagement, and a loss of talent. Women will just leave the workforce. Recognizing these patterns allows individuals and institutions to question the norms, to redistribute work more equitably, and to design systems that acknowledge and reward all forms of contribution. Awareness is a critical step towards change, both personally and structurally. So, what are these strategic tools? First, we have the LPT evaluation matrix. And this is where, and we can use these tools to move from awareness to action. The low promotability task evaluation matrix helps individuals assess requests by using a very clear criteria. Whether the task contributes to my performance evaluation, whether or not it increases my visibility or influence, whether or not it builds leadership competencies, or is this a task that could be delegated or rotated? When women apply this lens, many discover that a majority of their recurring responsibilities offer very little career return. So, complementing this tool is the 3A's framework: alignment, advancement, and authenticity. Alignment asks whether the task supports long-term goals, such as tenure, promotion, or leadership. Advancement evaluates whether it builds skills, whether it builds your network, or increases your visibility. That is important for your next role. And authenticity considers whether the work is aligned with your own leadership brand and your scholarly identity. Together, these frameworks, the evaluation matrix as well as the 3A's, they help to normalize a way for you to thoughtfully pause and reflect on what the task that you're being asked to do, thus reducing the guilt that we feel when we are making these decisions. They also clarify opportunity costs and prompting you to think about the critical question of, if I'm saying no, then what am I going to say yes to? That's the important thing. And we're going to talk about saying yes later. Equipped with this clarity, women can build an intentional yes portfolio focused on high impact areas. They can develop a script or language to say no, and they can also focus on how they also focus on using these tools to empower themselves to respond rather than react, which means that that effort that they're putting out is going to translate into advancement. So now we're going to practice identifying some LPTs in your work. Remember, I asked you a little while ago, think about, take some notes on the list of the tasks that I was reading. So I want you to make a list of low promotability tasks you may be doing. I also want you to think about 3 tasks that you've been volunteered for or been voluntold to do. So to kind of help you get this going, think about these questions when you're thinking about the task. Does the task contribute to my performance evaluation? Does it improve my visibility or my influence? Does it build future leadership competency skills? Is it a task that can be delegated or rotated? If you want to dig even deeper, so that was kind of using the LPT matrix, that kind of decision matrix. Now I want you to think about this. Does it align with my career goals? Will it advance my leadership skills, my visibility with leadership? Is it authentic to my leadership brand? Then I want you to ask yourself, what am I saying no to by saying yes? Am I saying no to research time? Am I saying no to curriculum innovation? What am I saying no to? But now I want to flip it around and ask yourself, would this be asked of a male colleague? And then finally, will this appear on my CV or in my promotion file? That's a good question. So take a few moments and you can pause the recording and then you can pick back up when you're ready to go as you're working on your list. Okay. So feel free to pause right here. So welcome back. So now we're going to build your yes portfolio. So the first thing I want you to do is identify 2 to 3 high impact areas that you can focus on. I want you to seek some stretch assignments and visible projects. Next, I want you to volunteer strategically. Identify a direct connection between your service and your career plan. Make sure there's a connection there. And then finally, know when to say yes. Identify your criteria for saying yes. Primarily, does it align with your focus area? That's a great way to start saying yes. Now, let's talk about saying no. I know that you've thought about some of your LPTs that you may be doing. So, what is the way that we can say no to these tasks? I want to go through some different ways of saying them because I want you to understand that no is a complete sentence. Okay. So, first, you can redirect it. You can say, well, I'm kind of focused on my curriculum design project right now, but I think someone else, you could give a name, has expressed interest in doing this. You could also say, with a conditional, you could say, I can help with this if we defer my XYZ. So, in other words, I can do this, but you're going to take something off of my plate. You may want to you may want to use a more transparent no by saying, I appreciate being considered, but I really need to prioritize my XYZ. Great ways to say no. And whenever you say no, you can also expect a little bit of pushback. So here are some ways to handle the pushback. When they say to you, but you're so good at this, you can say, thank you. That's why I'm focusing my energy on XYZ. Or maybe they say, but we really need a team player. You can say, I'm really committed to the team's success, but I have to prioritize XYZ. Or maybe they kind of hit you in your heart. Well, students really connect with you. And you can say, oh, thank you. I'm honored, but I really just don't have that time right now on my calendar. But thank you for letting me know that. And then finally, you're online anyway, you're already here. Well, being available doesn't mean that I'm responsible for everything that's happening. I need some time to work with XYZ. So sometimes you will need to escalate to your dean or to your department head for support if you feel like you can't say no without too much pushback. So having allies is really important as you're kind of reframing how you are restructuring your tasks. So we're about to wrap up, and I just want to give you some action steps. I want you to think about things you can do this week, this month, this quarter, this academic year, and then ongoing. What are some things you can do? So I want you to evaluate your requests that you're getting this week using the matrix and the three A's. Just kind of do it in your, in your mind and ask yourself, is this aligned? Go back and just kind of go through that checklist with yourself. And practice one no response this month and then track the outcome. What happens when you say no to someone? And then audit your service load this quarter and see what is promotable. And then finally, you can track your promotable and non-promotable tasks this year, and then also just really advocate for change within your institution. That's a great way to redistribute tasks and to make labor, make that invisible labor more recognizable. So our key task, no, before we go, I want you to leave understanding and knowing that you deserve to do work that advances your career. It is okay to be strategic in your task selection. It's a leadership skill to do this. And know that saying no is not selfish, it's self-advocacy. Finally, whoops, went a little too fast there. Finally, know that small changes can compound into big career results. So your career is built one decision at a time. You have permission to prioritize your growth, your scholarship, your leadership. Remember when we started out today, I asked you to think about those moments when you are asked to take notes, plan an event, or handle the emotional labor of your team. And as I think about this, I can think about times when I have reached out to a colleague and, they've held space for me. And that's emotional labor for them. So I need to rethink that too. But know that the power within isn't about becoming someone who says no to everything. It's about recognizing that you have the agency, the wisdom, and the right to make strategic choices about your time and your career. It's knowing that your work has value beyond being helpful, that your career deserves intentional cultivation, and that your leadership potential needs space to grow. Today, you've equipped yourself with tools, but the real power, that's been inside you all along. It's your ability to look at a request and ask yourself, does this serve my growth or does this serve someone else's convenience? You have permission from yourself, the only person whose permission you need, to choose differently. That's the power within. Use it wisely, use it boldly, use it starting today. I want to thank you from me to you with so much gratitude for going with me on this journey because I learned as much as you, I hope, learned in this session, and I hope we can grow together. I want to share with you my references. And then if you'd like to get in touch with me, here's my email address. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.